Good morning, everybody. Let me just go ahead and get this shared out really quick. We'll get started. All right, okay. And so I want to check a couple things really quick before we really jump into any trades. Now, I want to see the VVIX today. Did pull down quite a bit since yesterday. I want to check. Hold on, I'm trying to look at some structure really quick. So this double bottom looks extremely nice on SPY. Let me go ahead and clear all the old drawings. Care about them right now. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Alright, so we are looking at this double bottom on SPY. And off of this double bottom, there is a smaller double bottom, which is good. Then we have this minor cup. Okay. So that has been filled from this cup. Make sure it actually filled all the way. It did. So from this cup, we should be expecting a handle breakout to the upside. Do that weird, but whatever. Um, so that's what I'm expecting in the current moment, but I do need to check a couple different things. Good morning, everybody. Bitcoin does have some bearish structure, so we do need to be aware of. Of that. Now I want to look at the HIG really quick. HIG seeing buying, so that's good. Now this is NVIDIA. Looks super strong for the upside. There's some really good structure built here to completely fill this cup back up to the upside. Very likely all the way back up towards that 170. So we will be watching for that. QQQ is giving us a short, but I want to get SPY and everything first. So QQQ potentially giving us a short position right now. SPY, not yet, but I'm trying to see if... I was looking to see if this was a micro head and shoulders, but the right shoulder here didn't validate the previous head, so I'm not really looking for that to be a micro head and shoulders. Potentially, this can be a micro cup. Well, no, that got invalidated as well. So I am looking for some of these more bullish cups to fill out. We do have inverse head and shoulder liquidity here as well. Sorry, I woke up a little late, so I'm just trying to take a look at everything. The VVIX had a massive pull downward. Jeez. That was all the way up at, was that 127? It's showing 123, but very large gap down. That's a good thing for us expecting the upside. Semiconductors, they are pushing the upside a little bit. With them pushing the upside is the room to short. So both QQQ and semiconductors, I believe, are giving us the short position right now. Yep, so we're seeing the same amount of QQQ. And I want to look at SPY. SPY, not so much yet. We're looking for above this 640. So roughly that 640, 60 range. Really enter a short position. And for that short position, we're only looking for upper Bollinger to the 20 mile here. 20 mile being at the 639.07. So we still have some room before we start shorting. But that is the position I am looking for. Now, I do want to try to get a call into today, but we need to wait until, oh, my cat's being crazy. We need to wait until we get this handle downward. From that handle downward, we will look for the further upside. So that's what we're looking for currently. Now, I do apologize, I haven't had a chance to look at chat yet. We are seeing semiconductors pulling down already from that upper Bollinger. So potentially we could be seeing this move happening within semiconductors already. So from the upper Bollinger at 317.61, we're starting to pull down towards the middle Bollinger at the 315.33. So that can create a handle to the upside. SPY, if we can get this 640, we will be taking very short position within there. Why I don't want to take a put on QQQ? Um, Nothing, no reason particularly. I really want. So when I trade tech, I really want my tech, semiconductors, and SPY to kind of align. So for example, if I'm wanting to take the short position up here on SPY, then I want to be able to correlate this with QQQ and also with semiconductors so that it all makes sense. Well, when we're seeing the short position within QQQ and we see it within semiconductors, that's great, but we didn't also see it within SPY. SPY did not give us our entry yet. Let me just circle back to SPY. SPY did not give the entry, and because SPY did not give the entry, that's telling me that technically there's still a little bit of room upward between semiconductors and tech to give us that upside prior to us shorting it. Even with semiconductors here, we still see quite a bit of strength, even though it did pull down fairly aggressively. So that's kind of what I mean by I want to be able to have the full room to really have the position run. Now, even on QQQ, if we are going to take the short position, then I want SPY to also be in that range as well prior to me taking this position on QQQ. So it's not me choosing SPY over QQQ or anything else. It's primarily just I want everything to align. I want to make sure our position is very, very, very good. Okay, and on SPY, we are starting to get this upper Bollinger push here. Now again, we are waiting for the full level, so that is the 640.41. Very likely will be around that 640.60-ish range. From there, that'll be what I'll be looking for the short position, shorting the top of the cup, and we have multiple different cup tops we're shorting here. So it's a great short position, and if volatility decides to pick up on the day, then we'll be within a short position. Kind of like when we had that push upward to the 638 yesterday. Unfortunately, I didn't take the 0DT puts like I should have. I only took the TQQQ puts, but um, you know, would have been a much different story yesterday. So again, we're still looking for our level here, being super patient for that level. Now, when we do hit this 640, 60-ish range, I am going to be looking for the 639 puts. There's room in the 638 puts as well, just because that strike is not too out of reason, on this handle. Even if we push down to that 20 mile here. Hold on, my cat's going crazy. I'm gonna have to open the door for her in a second. Um, Once we push down to the 20 mile here, it's still gonna be a very, good move to make money on, even with the strike not being within the strike. So anything from the 640 to the 638 will be ideal here. But again, we do want to wait entirely for this level to hit. It's starting to get that level. So you go ahead and enter this call. I'm going to take the 639. Okay. And I got this at 176. Okay, so now again, today is a bullish day overall. So we are only shorting for this handle to the downside. Now our volatility still pulling downward very aggressively. Kind of the move I was wanting yesterday. Okay, so from this short position at the top, and we can see this push up slightly higher. Um, and we should be seeing the actual upper Bollinger pushed here. But with that said, the short position will be taken from the upper Bollinger here to the 639.18. Not really looking for room underneath that. Now, potentially we can be seeing some bearish structure within a potential head and shoulders. Hold on, I need to go open the door for my cat. One second, everybody. Alright, sorry about that. Okay, so our level is already getting very close to hitting here. So again, not being greedy, we will take profit basically right at this 639. So waiting. Okay, now I'm not entering any calls yet. That was probably the best example ever of just getting a 20 mod tap, just barely tapping the 20 mod level. I really hope you all were able to exit positions on that. If not, then still just continue to hold those puts, but I did exit my puts there. I'm not looking to re-enter unless we push all the way back up to the upper Bollinger again. Then I would reshort that, but from the current position, I'm not looking to take calls till we see some actual downside. That was the fastest put ever. Okay, USO. Very elevated today, but remember we talked about yesterday how this 129 is basically a decade high level. We should be expecting some rejection from this range. Now I do want to look at SPY again. Now SPY, I'm gonna go ahead and take the same put that I just profited off of a few seconds ago. So from this level, let's go back to the 639 puts. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and enter. Okay, so I'm in at the 170. And again, just looking for this 20 mile range from here. Now, potentially with the kind of crazy buying we are seeing, this could be the breakout already, but I'm not really expecting that. I do expect a little bit of reprieve prior to that breakout, but this is the breakout that I was looking for yesterday. It is unfortunate that they did have to kind of chop us up yesterday and give us the breakout today, but everything works out in the end. So in our current puts, down slightly, but I am expecting this to push back down again. Volatility is at a low of the day, so this is telling us that so far dealers pretty much have not needed to hedge their positions for the entirety of the day so far. I am looking for this to tick upward very, very slightly. So because it is the month expiration and the quarter expiration, um, sort of do expect buying up to the 5 mile range. Now, today our 5 mile is at the 641.76, so technically we're already almost there. With that level being at the 641.76, excuse me, sneeze really quick. Sorry about that. Um, with this level being at the 641.75, we should be expecting that level to be hit and potentially to push to the upper bounds of that level. Now, the upper bounds of that level will be at the 643.80. So we'll just basically put it right in that range. But I'm expecting the upper bounds of the 5 mod to be hit today and very, very likely to close slightly above that range. That might seem fairly bullish on the day, but that's truly what I'm expecting. there's that gap upward, or as right as I say that. Now, I am still in my put positions. I am going to add a couple more here. So adding at the 133. Now that hit the 5 mile level almost to the T. So I am expecting a rejection from this level. Now I will mark this current entry. Now again, we are looking for the 20 mile here. Still holding the put from the prior entry. So we've had 3 different entries today. I want to mark that entry. Okay, so that one took and profited on already. That was super, super fast. This one, we're waiting for the 20 mile. And from the current, we're waiting for the 20 mile. So, okay, perfect. Okay, so with the current puts, again, we're waiting for the 20 mile. 20 mile is at the 639.44. So with this very, very large push upward, getting to the 20 mile today would be a very, very large indicator to buy the call to the upside. So today is one of those rare situations where once we do pull down to the 20 mile, I will try to take a call to the upside. But we are at the 5 mile on the daily time frame. So we have finally hit support from the lower Bollinger move. This was what I've been really expecting to occur. Usually it doesn't happen a major gap up like that, but with yesterday being a little sketchy in terms of the price action, um, having the gap up today is perfectly fine. So we'll just currently just looking for the short position on this completed cup. Now I do want to look at volatility really quick. Volatility is still pulling downward. So overall, that's very good in terms of the bullish positions, but for these short positions, we do want to see the VVIX pulling down very slightly. Thank you. Now I want to look at NVIDIA, Microsoft. So everyone just make sure you watch your positions there. But with Microsoft, same thing here. Have the cup breakout. With the cup breakout, creates the entry on the short position for the handle. So that's Microsoft. Also telling us that cup and handle is very, very present. Micron has been melting since basically yesterday, which that would have been the ultimate short position to take. Um, QQ, excuse me. Same thing. Um, we do have larger cup at the 639, so I will be looking for this smaller cup to have this handle form to the downside. Downside 20 mile, very, very likely sending us upward towards that 569. I think I said 659. I don't even remember. I get the numbers mixed up, but 569 is what I'm looking for. Should be seeing the push to the downside to see that. On KQQ, that 5 mile is at the 656, so plenty of room downward. Semiconductors, the room downward is at the 1565. Currently it's at 318.88. So Plenty of room to the downside. By continuing to push upward. Volatility is still pushing a new low. See QQQ if they're aiming for that 569 prior to this. No, it doesn't look like it. It does look like they do want to get this cup and handle first, but we will see. So I wanted to pay attention very, very closely to the BVIX right now. Still pulling down to that 120. Still expecting some reprieve prior to this entirely breaking out on the day. No, I'm not really worried about the data coming out today. Um, it's mainly tomorrow's data that I'm worried about. We do have the CB consumer confidence coming out, but I actually think that will be a bullish catalyst for the market overall. Um, as the CB consumer confidence coming in cooler does sort of give credence to rate hikes rather than, or I mean rate cuts rather than rate hikes. So I do expect the CB consumer confidence to help us on the day. Um, for the overall, and that's the main data set that I'm looking for today was that CB consumer confidence. So semiconductors starting to pull down. Apologize for yawning. I need to go make some coffee soon. So again, we are looking for our 20-mile level here. That is currently at the 639.63. That will be the put exit and where we will be looking for calls on the day. So now these calls, personally, I would not get 0 DTE calls on this. I would just continue to add into the calls that we've been taking for the end of this week slash next week. The same strikes that we've been taking are going to be perfectly fine here. Let me just go ahead and look at TQQ and everything. Yeah, TQQ, pulling up to that $40. Our strikes are at the 41. I do have some 40 strikes as well. So these are all going to be running into, in the money very, very soon. For SOX S, I still have the 42 and 41 puts going. I think I might still have a couple of the 40 puts, but should be expecting our full level there. So the SOX S puts are, still very, very ideal. But overall, I just want to continue adding to those positions. Now, the main reason why I'm adding to those positions rather than focusing on 0 DTEs is overall we are expecting the push. I do apologize, all these arrows right now. We are overall expecting the push back up to the upper or not the upper Bollinger, but the 20 mile on the daily time frame. So that is close to the 660. Um, very, very likely pulling down towards that 658, 657 range by the time we actually head up there. So our upside is still very large from here. Um, I definitely want to catch that with those contracts. So now still holding the short positions here. We do see multiple cups being closed throughout the majority of tech. I want it for a moment. So we do have this very, very large cup being closed from yesterday, which fortunately that was the one that I was expecting to close from yesterday. Except I was expecting it to close yesterday, not today. Um, with this cupping being completed, we are looking for bearish structure at the top. From the bearish structure at the top, we'll be looking for, if I can grab the arrow properly, a handle to the downside. So this could be creating a really nice position on the day where potentially we can see this lower Bollinger. So we will be looking for that. So overall, still looking at the short positions, even though we are seeing buying on the day, BVIX still pulling downward. It did run all the way to the 119.58. It is at the 119.69, so a very slight tick upward. And I want to look at QQQ, Nvidia, everything else really quick. Yep, so we have this cup closed on Nvidia as well. Yeah, so pretty much all these symbols are telling me that we should be trying to build that bear structure at the top of these cups here. From the top of the cup, which again, I know this cup's kind of exaggerated to the outside a little bit, but just showing the structure. But from the top of this cup, again, create the handle, handle to the downside, very, very likely can take us to the lower Bollinger, but we're not being greedy. We're taking our exits at the 20 mile. From the 20 mile, we will reevaluate if that's going to be our call entry today, or if we're going to be waiting for that lower Bollinger to enter calls to the upside. So overall, that's really the trade of the day is we're writing the current puts into um bottom support, and from the bottom support, taking calls to the upside. Yeah, we're starting to see that throughout semiconductors, tech, and SPY. So we should be seeing our volatility picking up very slightly. It's at 119.61, so we do kind of want it to pull back up towards that 120 range. Look at Micron. This is the reason why I wanted to look at Micron, because with it pushing down very, very aggressively on the day, and as of yesterday as well, technically it was close to that 370 range yesterday, pulled down all the way to the 311. Um, Micron buying upward can, give us a ton of weight within the overall market today. So we will be looking for that, have a double bottom as well. From the double bottom to have a bit of a cup closing here. So again, we are looking for the rejection off the top of this cup. Q still giving us that level. Same with semiconductors and SPY. So yep, just waiting on our short positions to take us to the 20 mile. Do want to delete some of these drawings because they're driving me crazy. Send shoulders broke out very well. first position. Green to show that we did have a success on it. Now we're just waiting on our next two entries. So again, we're just going to be taking us back to the Bollinger, which is currently at the 639.88. Look at the 1 minute time frame for a moment, just to see if we see any head and shoulders building. And we do. So on the 1 minute time frame, do have this potential micro head and shoulders, which is that air structure we are looking at the top of this cup for. So that is looking very good. Starting to see that within semiconductors as well. Same within QQQ. I want to look at the VVIX. It is starting to pull up very, very slightly, so it's at the 119.73. So very, very likely that should give us that handle to the upside throughout the entirety of tech, semiconductors, and all that good stuff. From that downside within semiconductors, building the handle, should see volatility basically pull up towards the 20 MA and reject downward on the day. So really that's what I'm expecting overall. Go back to the SPY. SPY starting to pull downward. I need to go get some coffee in a minute, so I will be muting myself here in a second because I am losing my voice. But again, we are waiting for our 20 MA here, so I will just make a note of that. Okay, everybody, that's the plan right now. So I will be right back in a few minutes, but that's the plan. Um, Looking for our put exit, and from that put exit, we'll be taking a call to the upside. Now, again, we will ideally try to wait for the lower Bollinger. May not be the case though. We may have to take a position off the 20 MA. We will go over that together, assuming that this doesn't hit while I'm making coffee. So I will be right back, everybody. And hopefully this makes sense and isn't too distracting to have all these drawings on the screen here. Delete these first two entries because we know about them. Okay, that's the plan. I'll be right back, everybody. Alright, I am back everybody, but gonna be kinda mute for a second because I burnt my tongue really bad. So I am here, but we'll be mute just for a second. Okay, let me go ahead and look at all of our levels really quick. So on the 1 minute time frame, we are starting to build some of this bearish structure that we're looking for. It'll look like a right shoulder or a left shoulder, but that is the left shoulder right there. It's the head. Now look for the right shoulder. Should give us, again, our downside to take the calls um, for the overall upside in the day. So that's what we're looking for to play out. Now I want to look at a few different symbols really quick. I want to look at oil as well. All right, so volatility for the 5 minute time frame. Still looking for it to pull upward towards this 20 mile range. 20 mile is currently at the 124. I don't expect volatility to pull up towards that. Very, very likely towards the 121, 122 at tops. But we are looking for that slight pull upward. From that pull upward, are looking for the pull downward. Oh, SPY. Kind of same thing here. Looking for this head and shoulders to take us downward. Very likely towards the lower Bollinger range. Now, currently the lower Bollinger on the 5 minute time frame is at the 637.41. I don't anticipate it to pull all the way down there on the day. I expect it to start pulling the 5 mile upward as the 20 mile is starting to pull upward. So as we start to make our way towards this 20 mile range, which currently is at 640.18, then we will see the lower Bollinger pulling upward, very likely towards that 638, 639. Hit that range, take the calls, and it should be a very, very good day. Volatility still creating new lows on the day, so 1953. See QQQ. QQ, we're looking for the same thing here. We're looking for this rejection to create this head and shoulders to the downside to give us our handle on this larger cup, which of course they're deciding to push upward. Technically, we can push all the way up to this 6 or this 568.80. So if we have a rejection from there, that still fits that head and shoulders. Now, I want to see semiconductors, NVIDIA, all that good stuff. Okay, so NVIDIA, very well pushed above its cup here, which, sorry, it looks kind of janky, but this is a cup. might look like a bowl. Cup has been filled. From the cup being filled, we are anticipating bearish structure to the downside. So on the video, we should be seeing that very, very soon here. On the top of that cup was at the 169.69. So we're well within the conditions to pull down and create the handle. Same with QQQ. We continue to get that rejection at that, you know, 568.80 range that I talked about, and that still fits a head and shoulders. Even if it looks wonky, we still have the liquidity there. So that looks good. QQQ on the 5-minute time frame for the 20 MA is at the 566.09. So again, that's the range we're looking for the exit. SPY, and if we still see the rejection from this range, this will fit that head and shoulders. And I want to look at volatility because we should be seeing volatility spiking upwards slightly. It is. Not very much, but every single penny you see volatility move upward does matter. So it did go to the 119.45. It is now at the 119.57. Seeing this rejection within QQQ. It's good. We just need to see our level fully hit. I want to look at semiconductors. So that will still have some room to the downside. That cup did not close. So yes, we are looking for the downside there. Downside in semiconductors is at the 316.92. Right here, we're still waiting for our level. And let's take a look at Micron again. Micron did build a micro cup here on the 1 minute time frame. So there is this, excuse me for my voice giving out. There's this micro cup and handle here. With this micro cup being here, this does create the conditions to create the handle to the downside prior to heading upward. So a little, excuse me, a little weight lost within Micron should be expected. Oh, I'm just a mess today, everybody. Let's see. Volatility slowly ticking upward, so 119.69. It's exactly what we're looking for, is for it to slowly tick upward towards that 121, 122 range. Now, I have not checked what the, excuse me, what the CB consumer confidence came in at. My voice is giving out. Hold on, give me just 1 minute to pull that up. I'll take a look at SanDisk. Let me just go ahead and see what the CB consumer confidence came in. So it actually came in um a little elevated, which is surprising. That's interesting. So last reading was 91. The forecast was at the 87.8. The expectation came, or the number came in at the 91.8. I was really expecting closer to the 88 range. Not super important, because that is a soft data set, meaning it's opinion based, but still surprising to see that pulling upward when we're having massive, massive oil volatility. Is the SPY still head and shoulders? Technically, it is. We are seeing this micro cup forming here though, so we do have to be careful because that can create, the upside would create a smaller cup here. Now, if that occurs, then we wait for this smaller cup top, and the exit would be within that range. Now, if we see SPY push down in this area, and not fill this cup, then this could still be a right shoulder, even though it looks very, very janky, but the liquidity is all there. So if we don't have that upside breakout, then this is still very much a head and shoulders. So we will watch that very closely. Now, volatility, I am expecting this to tick upward. It is at 119.59, so remember it did pull up to the 119.69, so down a few cents. Be very, very cautious of this micro cup because that can turn into a micro cup and handle and start pushing up towards that 643 range. So I am watching this very closely to see if this breaks down or not. I am looking for this to break down all the way back to the 640.90 range to really invalidate this micro cup here. Apologize for all of the lines we got going on. Yeah, I like burnt my throat and everything. It's super hard to talk right now, I apologize. We are seeing this head and shoulders out of semiconductors here. So this is good. I want to see liquid and HIG. We already know they're buying up, but I do want to see if they are giving us a slight downside. So HIG potentially can be giving us a small head and shoulders here. QQQ, potentially this is that micro cup and handle I was talking about. So we will see if that continues pushing upward or not. Yeah, it does look like that micro cup and handle does want to form, which would mean that we are going to the 643, which would mean that we would be expecting the upper bounds of the 5 mile on the daily time frame. The upper bounds is around that 644. We marked the 643.92 earlier this morning just to mark that level, but extremely likely we're trying to head up towards that level on the day. Really just trying to find this pullback though, so that we can position ourselves within some nice calls to the upside. But we do need to see our structure break down slightly. Yeah, this is looking like it's going to complete that cup that we talked about. So completing this cup will invalidate this prior head and shoulders that we were looking at. So we don't see some super, super large rejection here, then this right shoulder will be invalidated. But even with this right shoulder being super far placed outward, the liquidity is still there. So if we have a rejection, then this is still fitting the liquidity for the Head and Shoulders. That's only if we have, that massive rejection that we're expecting. Our volatility still pulling downward slightly. So I'm really not expecting that just yet. I do more so expect this cup to complete. Seeing this out of semiconductors as well. Very likely in that cup and handle breakout. But we will see. Because if we still have a large rejection from here, then that would create the liquidity for the right shoulder, but really not expecting that at this point. Everything's kind of alluding to pulling upward to complete that cup. Which from that cup, hold on, I just want to look at a few things. So completing this cup would take us back up to the 569.04. That would bring the 5 mile to about the 567.20. So yeah, the shorts are still acceptable. Even if the position has been very, very shaky after that initial short we had. So we are looking for a really large rejection throughout SPY, QQQ, and semiconductors right now. Not really anticipating this right shoulder building out. Um, I sort of expect this up to form throughout the majority of tech. But we will see here. Oh, and did want to look at SanDisk. I don't know why that's not on main watch list right now. Okay, so SanDisk. Let's see what we got going on here. See the moving averages. So it's extremely likely it's doing a 5 mile test prior to further downside, and this is on the daily time frame. So the 5 mile is at the 615.87. It hit 613 today, so I am looking for that 615, basically that 616 range. From that 616 range, that'd be pretty decent short. Even though that's not what I'm really looking for a short position, because that would close this full inverse cup very, very likely to the downside, taking you all the way back down to that 517 range. Now I want to look at volatility again. Yeah, I'm really expecting these cups to close here. Now, volatility still pushing lows of the day, but we do see how it is tapering away from the lower Bollinger here. This is a signal that we're sort of looking for it to begin to push upward. Um, this tapering from the lower Bollinger is showing us that there is, some of that weakness in there. So I'm watching this super closely, and I do just want to check some positions on the phone. Now those Success puts that we got are starting to gain some weight, so that's good. Was a little worried that those might have been too far out of strike, but with how much semiconductors pushed upward yesterday, there was plenty of room for the short within the bear semiconductor ETF. Sorry I sound so tired and everything, everybody. Had a pretty bad night last night. I barely slept, and then had coffee this morning and burned my tongue and throat really bad. Standard type of day for me, so we are looking for this rejection to continue. This would create that right shoulder. This cup did not complete, so we can temporarily delete that. Now, if this is going to take us to the 20 mile, then that 20 mile would be at the 640.79. Now, assuming you entered short positions with me earlier, then these short positions will be read by the time we go to exit. That's just kind of the unfortunate part of today. Unless we see that major push downward towards basically the 638, 639 range, um, we really won't be seeing that great exit on the puts because they just chop those positions up way too much. Um, and we did enter, you know, prior to that massive breakout. So the exit's still at this 640.79 or 76, excuse me. If you're holding multiple puts, then we will try to catch some runners here, but do take the majority um, of the exit at the 20 mile range, even if potentially we do have some more downside today. The upside today is just super, super, super strong. And I think it's, again, very, very likely we could see all the way up to that 644. And we don't want to be holding puts at that level. So use our exit, just be out of it, take the premium we have, and we will look for the calls to the upside. Especially when we see our volatility continuing to pull downward. Um, we'll just use this exit and move on and look for the call positions from here. So that's the plan. If we're lucky, then the runner puts will catch some of this downside, but that's not the goal anymore. The goal will be to secure good calls on the day. So our level is coming up again. It's at the 640.74. I will be exiting pretty much the majority of the positions right at that level because with volatility continuing to pull down as I'm saying this, we can touch that level and bounce. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting some of this stuff sold. And funny enough, actually some of these 639 puts are the same price as what we bought them. at that 130.33. So didn't really lose anybody in terms of that. That's actually very surprising. We did lose a little bit on the position we entered at the 171. Um, but big deal. I don't really care too much about that. We did have the earlier successful position play out very well. Hold on, let me say hi to my daughter really quick. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so should be out of the majority of our puts right now. I do have a few runners. I'm really not expecting a lot of anything out of them. Okay, cool. So we are looking for the calls at this point. Now, ideally, we're not going to be taking calls at this 20 mile range. We are going to be trying to allow some of this downside to come in. Now, our volatility is pulling up very slightly. It's at 119.71. It ticked downward right as I said that, so 119, or was that 119.75, pulled down to 119.71. So potentially we can be seeing, this very large bounce at this 5-minute 20 mile range. Now, again, this is a very good point to add to those dated positions we have, those dated calls, because again, the likelihood of seeing the breakout throughout the rest of the week is super, 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 super high. Um, but if you're wanting to add any form of, zero DT into this, you really do want to be patient for this lower Bollinger. Um, that's going to take quite a while to build today, so I do expect some chop into that if we're going to be seeing that level. So we'll be looking for that. Excuse me. And I can delete that because we finally had that trade work out. So very cool. 2 successful trades so far today. And now we are waiting for our call entry. Now, again, our call entry will be pretty much when we start seeing volatility tick back downward. Now, we still can chop quite a bit today because the 20 mile on um, volatility is at the 122.22. It did, take us most of the day so far just to go from this 121 to the 119. So going back to the 119 towards the 122, very, very unlikely. So what is likely is that we're going to continue seeing the 20 mile pulling downward. And with the 20 mile pulling downward, then we could hit that level around the, 121, 120-ish range. So that's really what I'm expecting out of volatility. But we do want to see that 20 mile hit first prior to entering the calls. Um, you know, that 20 mile range is really going to be kind of that bounce area to the downside. Um, so that's the expectation out of volatility. Now, oil still super elevated. Nothing much to say about that. We're in an oil conflict right now. SPY potentially trying to build some support, but again, I'm not wanting to catch this with zero DTEs here, even though I do think that the upside potential is, absolutely massive. But I do want to wait for that lower Bollinger if I'm going to take any of the zero DTEs. But at this range, I have been slowly adding into some of the dated positions that we've had throughout this week, or for this week and next week. So those are the success puts. So I currently have the 42, the 41, and 40 put for this Thursday and next Friday. And I have TQQQ calls. So I have the 40 strike, 41, and 42 strike. The 42 strikes are just kind of cheapies that I've been picking up yesterday. Don't really expect a whole lot out of them. If they hit, they hit. And I actually do want to look at a 6. Hold on. So that is going to be the 10th. So on SPY, I want to look at a 655 call. Potentially the 10-day 650 call to 655 call on SPY could be very, very, very nice. Especially that 650. And it's about $600 to take. Just a little sketchy with volatility being elevated still, throughout the overall daily time frame. Now we are seeing volatility spike upward very slightly, so it's currently at the 120.27. Good morning, and no worries. So far today we had um two really good put entries. Technically we entered, three different sets of puts. First set we did very, very good on. Second set we did have to add into because right after we took those puts, they pushed them up or pushed the price up. So we had to add into those positions. But from those positions, took to the 20 mile range. From this 20 mile range, we're now waiting to find support on the day. And from the support on the day, we will be taking calls to the upside. So that's the overall game plan. Now, I'm seeing on tech, semiconductors, and SPY that there's a lot of liquidity kind of in the same area on these very large cups. So potentially we could see the market try to aim for that same level, build liquidity within that range, and then take the breakout back up to the upside. So ideally, that's what I'm looking for calls to the upside because that would push our lower Bollinger to that level and secure us a really nice trade. Basically, same goes with the SPY here. We have all that liquidity in there. So if we can get the exit on or if we can get this entry at this lower Bollinger, then that would be very, very good for the call upside. Now, am I really worried about the call upside? Not really at all. Again, on the daily time frame, the 5 mile is currently at the 641.48. So this is pretty much just 5 mile testing. I fully expect the price to be very close to that 643, 644 towards the close today. So with SPY pushing down here, potentially at that 638.30, that would be a very good call entry because there is this micro inverse cup here. With the micro inverse cup, that would give us our conditions to see that bullish breakout, even though that is a bearish structure. So we will be looking for that for the entry. Not really worried about seeing this being some sort of 5 mile rejection on the day though. Um, we've been seeing a ton of lower Bollinger pushes in here, and we had a really extended lower Bollinger push on QQQ during this last cycle. So not really expecting to see another 5 mile rejection back down to that range. I'm waiting again for the lower Bollinger here to enter calls, um, at least on 0DT. I don't want to enter early because technically our charts are telling us that we still have a little bit of downside available, so no reason to enter early, just wait for that level. Same with semiconductors here. I want to hide the moving averages, but same with semiconductors here. It's telling us that semis potentially still have another $3, $2 of downside. Sorry, my daughter is crying. Give me 1 second, everybody. All right, sorry about that. But hopefully that makes sense. No, QQQ semiconductors are still showing that we have that downside. Sort of like what we were talking about this morning with the SPY, how potentially we saw where semiconductors and QQQ were pushed into their upper Bollinger, but SPY wasn't. And I said that even though semiconductors and QQQ's in the upper Bollinger, we really want to wait for the SPY to push that level as well, because, you know, the chart was telling us that SPY still had that room available to take that upper Bollinger. So I'm very glad we did wait because obviously, the price pushed very, very greatly into that position. So we would have, gone absolutely destroyed if we try to enter early on that. So always better to be patient and wait for the entry than to um try to rush it because potentially say we take that call on SPY, say, it looks really, really good right now. We think it's the bottom of this cup. It's going to bounce. Well, what happens if semiconductors decide to pull down another $1.50? Um, that's going to absolutely destroy those calls. Potentially those calls would be, you know, at this 637 plus range. So, or, below that. So try to give each symbol the room that it needs to really have that expansion to the downside or upside. Still have room within QQQ, still have room within SPY. Now, again, overall, these are still bullish cups. So I'm not very worried about the downside, overtaking the day. But we do want to wait for our prime entries. Now, I am putting stops on the rest of my puts here. Okay, and they're just gonna immediately get stopped out very likely. Yep, okay. Fine with me. Just fine with me. Again, those positions from a 146 average to 227. So very happy with that. Even if we potentially still have a little bit more downside. Now our lower Bollinger is at the 637.81. When we do see SPY pushing this lower Bollinger here, um, I will be engaging into calls, not 0 TT calls. Again, I want to be in dated positions right now. I think our upside is absolutely huge. So I really just want to soak up that full upside. And I do have to go fairly soon here, so I won't be able to watch the 0 DTs the entire day. So that's why, unfortunately, I won't be taking the 0 DTs, even if the position is super, super good. But wait for that level to hit. Once that level hits, 0 DT calls into pretty much the high of the day should be very, very solid. Now our volatility, it is at the 121.59, so just like we talked about, it pulled up towards that 20 mile range. With it being at that 20 mile, I am expecting it to start pulling back down. So we will be watching for that. And I will be right back. I'm going to get my daughter in the car and everything. Sorry about that. I'm back, everybody. Currently, I use Weeble and IBKR. Been wanting to open an E-Trade though. So, Spy, getting our bounce. Now, again, I did not enter 0 DTEs. I do have to get going fairly soon here, so I'm wasn't looking for those positions at all today, or at least in this moment. Um, but they are very good, and again, we should truly be seeing this 644 range on the day. The top of this cup has been completed. Um, with this pulling down, this is starting to create our handle. With the handle forming, expect a little bit of a rejection up at the top here. And again, we will just continue to push upward. So that's the expectation for the day. Um, these calls from lower Bollinger, yes, the safe position is to take from the lower Bollinger to the 20 mile. Um, Obviously, that's what you should do for the majority of your positions. However, I do think that there is quite a bit of upside on the day. So if you're able to get a runner to catch the entirety of that upside, that'd be a very, very awesome position. Now, I do want to take a look at the volatility really quick. Pulled all the way to the 121.73 and is now back to the 120.92. So if we can continue to see this pulling downward, that would be that 20 mile rejection and very likely the massive bounce out of tech and spy that we're looking for. So should be a great day overall. Will we break the 344 today? I really don't expect that. Just based off of how elevated we already are on the day. Um, I believe the SPY is already over 1% currently. So hitting that 642, 643 range is really going to be pushing it up there. So I kind of really expect that 643, 644 to be the upper limits of the day. Very likely closing within that range, within this handle. So now again, our 5 mile is basically right at the 642, I want to say 642, 40-ish range if I remember correctly. So we will mark that just so that everybody's aware. But yeah, that's sort of the expectation of today. Just very quickly going over the daily time frame. We had our day 2 lower Bollinger move, and from the day 2 lower Bollinger, as always, we expect the 5 mile retest. Now, sometimes these 5 mile retests like to work in multiple different parts, which I'm gonna have to draw in this area right here. So you could see how there's this one where it pulls down and then it pulls upward. When we test the 5 mile sometimes, at least to the downside I've been noticing, that we will like to test the lower bounds of the 5 mile one day and then the upper bounds of the 5 mile the other day. So potentially today we could be seeing the upper bounds of the 5 mile tested. Tomorrow have the 5 mile pull up, and then we could be testing the lower bounds for the majority of the day and then head upward, something like that. But the true expectation is to retest this 5 mile range. Pattern can continue where we see rejection, 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 and rejection. Um, I'm not really expecting to continue that rejection within this range just yet. I do more so expect to continue upward towards this 20 mile. The reason why is because we have not seen the 20 mile tested in, I believe, either 22 or 23 trading sessions. So we're very much due to have that 20 mile level retested to the upside. 20 miles currently at the 660.20. Very likely by the time we actually reach that level, probably be around that 657, 658 range. So that's why I've been really saying tack on those dated calls because our upside from here is, very, very large. And a weak prediction. Sorry, I don't mean to continue clearing my throat. So let me see for the end of week prediction. Have a super nice gap here. Okay. Now with that gap, top of that gap takes us all the way to the basically 666, 20 mile range. That would complete a cup, assuming test the 20 mile in there. From that cup, very, very likely form bearish structure. Head back down if we're going to, continue seeing upside. So end of the week, still have quite a while from there. I think this 652 range is another chunk of liquidity that they might aim for prior to that. And that aligns really well with a lot of this structure because with the shorter week, we can see basically this range taken up towards that 652, um, open up next week, then slowly retest that 20 mile. And if we're going to have a 20 mile rejection, have that 20 mile rejection from there. So I'm gonna really my level at that 652 for the end of the week. I am expecting overall bullishness, even though the conditions are, overall very, very, very bearish. Very awesome when everybody's winning. All right, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream a little early today. I do apologize. I have not been feeling good today, and um, yeah, we so far have had three very good trades. I only took two of them. Well, technically three of them. I didn't take the 0 DTE here, but I did take dated positions to tack on to our current positions. So again, I'm just expecting the upside today. Um, want to look at our volatility because very likely it's seeing that 20 mile rejection. So 5 minute time frame, expecting the rejection back down, very likely towards that 117 um, range towards the end of the day, give or take. Now, volt or the actual VIX, we do have this range where, and okay, this is a daily time frame. This box right here is basically signifying the bear market, and this is the level that the VIX traded between during 2022 and 2023. Where it was a very constant pulling between
I remember correctly at the time, it was basically like that $16 range towards the 30 to $40 range. Constantly just up, down, up, down, up, down. Um, I'm expecting the exact same thing here. Uh, I do expect, or I do believe that we are in a bear market. And I do expect that we will be seeing continued selling over the next few months, but we do need to see a little bit of a reprieve as we have been selling very, very, very hard for the last almost month straight. So, um, really do expect some of this support upside. I don't really expect the 20 mile this week. I think that'd be pretty crazy. Um, it can happen, but I don't really anticipate it. That's something I really expect more so early to mid next week. So, yeah, thank you everybody. I hope you had some great trades today. I'm sorry I sound so sick and just not with it. I won't be streaming tomorrow. Just a reminder, I will be having a small surgery in the morning. Um, just some minor surgeries on my head. But besides that, um, no stream tomorrow because of that. Basically, we'll be having surgery during the time market opens, and I will be okay to stream on Thursday. So I will be streaming Thursday morning. So I look forward to seeing y'all there. Thank you for watching and for supporting what I do and all that good stuff. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And hopefully you all were able to take some of those 0TT calls and are kicking some major butt. So have a great day, everybody. I will talk to you later, and thank you all for watching. Thank you. Thank